We don't have to win in order to be respected. We have to stay true to ourselves and not become what's popular.
They say when it rains, it pours, but Kevin Costner is getting slammed by a whole hurricane right now. A stunt double from Horizon hit him with a sexual harassment lawsuit, claims he flat out denies, but a judge still greenlit it for trial. Then there's the marriage that blew up in 2023 after nearly 2 decades. The breakup got so messy it turned into a courtroom marathon, with his ex pushing for $248,000 a month in support, numbers he called unbelievable. And the dream project that was supposed to crown his legacy?
I know. It just kind of all went downhill from there.
Close your eyes for a second and become a little girl again and open them and go for a ride with me.
Horizon, the 4-part epic he sank $38 million of his own cash into, crashed hard at the box office. $11 million on a $100 million budget. That's the kind of hit that makes Hollywood insiders whisper that even a legend his age could face serious financial trouble. At the center of this downfall was one huge decision: walking away from more than $1 million per episode by quitting Yellowstone after clashing with creator Taylor Sheridan. He left to focus on Horizon, but that one gamble flipped his life upside down. To really see how wild this became, you gotta rewind to 2018 when he signed on as John Dutton. His career had been quiet for a while, but Yellowstone snapped him back on top fast, pulling massive audiences and turning him into a TV powerhouse again. People saw a strong leader on screen, but behind the scenes, his grip was slipping fast. The tension started creeping in back in 2022 when the Yellowstone schedule became brutal. Months of non-stop filming with no breathing room. Most actors could deal with that grind, but Costner had a different fire burning in him. For decades, he'd been shaping his dream project, Horizon, a massive 4-part Western he'd been obsessed with long before his Oscar wins. As Yellowstone stretched deeper into each year, he felt trapped between the show that revived him and the story his heart wouldn't let go of. Something had to give, and by 2023, the pressure between him and creator Taylor Sheridan exploded. Talks for the final season got messy fast, with sources saying Costner wanted more control, more pay, and a tighter shooting schedule, demands Sheridan wasn't giving up for anyone. People on set whispered that Costner was hard to pin down, claiming his ego and schedule were wearing everyone out. His team hit back, saying none of that was true, that the production kept shifting dates and leaving him stranded. By May 2024, he even paused Horizon and rushed back to the Yellowstone set to make things work, only to find out there wasn't even a script waiting for him. He called the whole situation impossible and stepped away for good. Then, in June 2024, he dropped the bomb on Instagram. He was done with Yellowstone. He said the show meant a lot to him, but after grinding on Horizon for so long, he couldn't keep balancing both worlds. When Season 5 Part 2 hit screens in November 2024, fans learned John Dutton's fate. He was found dead at home, written off with a dark explanation that nobody believed. Costner later said on Sirius XM he'd heard about the storyline, but guessed it was just misdirection. And he was right, since the show twisted it into a murder mystery he never returned to see. Luke Grimes later told reporters that when Kevin left, some of the conflict left with him, and that line hit like a warning flare. It showed just how tense things had gotten on that set. But why would Kevin toss away the biggest paycheck on TV for Horizon? What could be so powerful that he'd walk away from guaranteed wins? To get it, you gotta go back to 1988 when he first started shaping this massive Western saga. It was supposed to be a multi-part story of the American West after the Civil War, the kind of thing he'd been dreaming about long before the world crowned him after Dances with Wolves. That film brought the Western genre back from the grave and made him Hollywood royalty overnight. But when his follow-up, The Postman, tanked in 1997, his entire career cracked. Still, he held on to Horizon. He called it the one story he could never let go of.
It's important to know that you can cry, and that when you do, there's a feeling that comes with this. Do you want to love that hard that you know you're going to cry? Because you are when you love. You're going to lose. There's loss that comes with loving so much.
I don't think I'm a great businessman. I'm a pretty good daydreamer. My dad would tell you that.
Once Yellowstone made him a powerhouse again, he saw a shot. But studios weren't biting. They didn't believe anyone would sit through a 12-hour, 4-part Western in theaters. Execs wanted control, notes, rewrites, none of which Kevin was willing to accept. So he did the unthinkable. He bankrolled it himself. He mortgaged his Santa Barbara estate, one of the most valuable properties in California, putting everything he'd earned over 40 years on the line. When the numbers settled, he'd sunk $38 million of his own cash into Horizon. His accountant nearly passed out, and advisors warned him he was risking everything for a dream with no guaranteed return. But Kevin doubled down. He told Francis Ford Coppola he needed his kids to know he went after what he believed in, even when fear was sitting on his shoulder. Behind the scenes, though, the pressure crushed his home life. His wife, Christine, was reportedly terrified watching him gamble their home and millions on a project no studio believed in. The tension was rising fast, and it was about to explode. Kevin thought he had one advantage: the Yellowstone audience. He believed the fans who worshipped John Dutton would follow him straight into theaters. Kevin believed that if even a slice of Yellowstone's massive audience showed up, Horizon would smash the box office. He needed around $80 million just to break even on what he personally put in, and he truly thought his fan base would ride with him. So when the Yellowstone schedule kept blocking Horizon, he made the call. He walked away from over $1 million per episode to chase the one story he'd carried for 36 years. To him, Horizon wasn't just a movie, it was his legacy, his new Dances with Wolves, but that dream came with a price he never expected. In May 2023, his personal life blew up when his wife, Christine Baumgartner, filed for divorce after 18 years of marriage. The separation date shocked everyone, especially Costner, who later spoke in court with real pain in his voice about the moment she left. They shared 3 kids, Caden, Hayes, and Grace, and from the outside, the family looked solid, but the pressure around Horizon had turned small cracks into huge divides. Christine had reportedly begged him not to risk their money on the film, but he kept going and eventually she walked. Then came the brutal divorce battle. Christine filed for child support, asking for $248,000 per month, a number that stunned even Hollywood. Costner's team pushed back, saying her accountant added expenses that had nothing to do with the kids, while Costner argued the real number was around $51,000. The fight got uglier when it came to the house. Their prenup said she had to leave their $45 million Santa Barbara estate within a set time after filing, but she refused, saying it was the only home the children knew. Her lawyers claimed he was trying to force out his own family, but the judge upheld the prenup and ordered her to move. By July 2023, she found a $40,000 a month rental and started separating her world from his, a painful ending to an 18-year marriage that collapsed right as his biggest gamble hit its peak. While everything was falling apart, rumors exploded about a man named Joshua Connor, a longtime family friend who'd been close to both Kevin and Christine. For nearly 8 years, he'd been renting one of Costner's pricey beachfront guest houses, the kind that cost over $60,000 a month. People around them claimed that while Kevin was gone filming, Christine and Joshua were spending a lot of time together. She reportedly visited his guest house almost every day. Their kids hung out together, and the whole situation looked messy from the outside. By August 2023, during the child support hearings, Connor's name kept popping up. Christine's lawyer insisted they were just friends, but Kevin's team was clearly skeptical. He even slipped and said, "And I'm gonna kill him," a line that made everyone wonder if something deeper had been going on while the marriage was still alive. Then came the showdown, the big child support hearing in September 2023. Kevin and Christine both took the stand for 2 tense days. Kevin admitted the divorce shook his whole world and that he was trying to be there for his kids while figuring out how to process everything. When his finances came up, Kevin admitted he didn't know most of the deep details, saying his accountants gave him simplified versions of everything. His forensic accountant argued that his Yellowstone salary, over $1 million per episode, shouldn't count anymore because he'd already left the show. That money was gone. Christine's team pushed back, pointing out he made over $24 million in 2022 and saying his $51,000 proposal was only a fraction of what the guidelines suggested. They even noted that his offer was less than what he charged for renting just one of his guest houses. But Kevin's lawyers argued that once Yellowstone income was removed, his monthly cash flow dropped to around $468,000, still big, but nowhere near what Christine claimed. After reviewing everything, the judge announced the ruling: child support would be $60,209 per month, far below Christine's request for $248,000 and even less than what she'd been receiving temporarily. It was a major win for Kevin, but it didn't feel like a victory at all. His marriage was gone, his kids were stuck in the middle of a public storm, and Christine was already moving forward with her own new life. By December 2023, Christine was spotted in Hawaii with Joshua Connor, the same man dragged into their divorce hearings, and the photos made it obvious this wasn't just friendship anymore. By January 2025, they were engaged after Joshua proposed on a Santa Barbara beach, and by October 2025, they were officially married in a private vineyard ceremony. For Kevin, seeing his ex-wife marry someone who'd been around during the marriage had to hit like a body blow.
Do you have an appointment?
I sound like a broken record, but that's where it starts for me.
Their divorce was finalized in February 2024 with joint custody, but the emotional damage was already carved into his life. And right as his family fell apart, his dream project stepped into the spotlight. On June 28, 2024, Horizon, an American saga. Chapter 1 hit theaters nationwide. Just weeks earlier, it had earned an 11-minute standing ovation at Cannes. Kevin stood on that stage with tears in his eyes, believing he'd created something powerful and lasting. But opening weekend hit him like a knockout. The film made only $11 million against a $100 million budget. The Yellowstone audience he counted on never showed up. Analysts were stunned since they expected at least $15 to $20 million from his core fan base. Instead, many viewers felt like he'd abandoned them when he walked away from the show. Then the reviews came crashing in. Critics called Horizon convoluted, scattered, and self-indulgent. One reviewer even said he couldn't imagine sitting through another 540 minutes of the saga, while another wrote he was shocked Costner left Yellowstone to make something so messy. The Rotten Tomatoes score settled at 49%, split, but definitely leaning negative. Audiences weren't kinder. People said it felt like the pilot of a TV show instead of a full movie. Too many characters, too many storylines, and no real payoff. Even with Kevin stepping in as the lone cowboy helping Sienna Miller's survivor character, the film felt overloaded and unfinished to many viewers. Luke Wilson was leading a wagon train. Sienna Miller's storyline was hanging in the air, and every plot thread just froze like someone hit pause. Viewers paid for a full movie, not a come back later message, and people felt played hard. Week after week, the numbers sank even deeper. By the time Horizon crawled out of theaters in August, it had made only $29 million in the US and $3.6 million overseas, a worldwide total of just $32.6 million on a $100 million budget. Even with Warner Brothers only taking 8%, the math was brutal. Kevin needed $80 million to break even. He didn't even get halfway there. Behind closed doors, panic hit fast. Chapter 2 was supposed to drop August 16th, only 6 weeks after the first film, to keep the hype rolling. Instead, the studio yanked it off the release calendar completely. No date, no plan, nothing, and the wild part? The second film was already finished. It had even screened for critics in Venice in September 2024. But Warner Brothers wasn't willing to risk another flop. Sources said Costner went straight into crisis talks, trying to figure out how to save what was left. He was reportedly crushed, scared that Horizon might drain him financially. And honestly, the numbers were scary. His $38 million personal investment? Gone. The mortgage on his Santa Barbara estate? Hanging by a thread. Advisors who warned him this could destroy his finances were suddenly looking painfully correct. One analyst had even called Horizon a threat to the estate of Kevin Costner and the financial kiss of death. Another said the idea of audiences watching all 4 movies in one day was pure fantasy. Nobody wanted 12 hours of Horizon when they struggled through the first 3. Insiders claimed Kevin was taking it rough. He still believed in the films, but watching them fall apart in real time crushed him. And the harshest twist? Yellowstone kept soaring without him. The final episodes pulled huge ratings, proving the show didn't need John Dutton as much as people thought. Meanwhile, the project he'd risked everything for was being labeled one of the biggest box office collapses of 2024. Exactly what Christine had feared from day one. Christine walked away with her settlement before everything collapsed, but Kevin Costner at 69 was staring straight at financial freefall, and somehow things were about to spin even darker. In May 2025, while Kevin was scrambling to revive the Horizon franchise, a legal shockwave hit Hollywood. A stunt performer named Devin Label Bella filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court accusing Costner and the Horizon production team of harassment, a hostile work environment, and emotional distress. The claims were graphic, serious, and instantly explosive. According to the filing, on May 2, 2023, during Horizon Chapter 2, Label, Bella said she was thrown into a violent, unscripted scene with no warning and zero safety protocols. The lawsuit spread across headlines like wildfire, dragging Kevin into a whole new storm. Label Bella had been hired as the lead stunt double for actress Ella Hunt, who played Juliet. She wasn't some rookie. She'd worked on massive productions like Barbie and American Horror Stories. The day before, she'd performed a carefully rehearsed assault scene with full choreography, multiple takes, and proper coordination. Everything had gone smoothly. But the next day, the lawsuit claims everything changed. Costner, acting as director, allegedly decided on the spot to add a new scene involving actor Roger Ivans climbing on top of Juliet and yanking her skirt up in a way that suggested an off-camera assault. This scene wasn't on the call sheet, wasn't discussed, and wasn't approved. Ella Hunt was reportedly so upset she refused to do it and walked off set. Label Bella says she wasn't told any of this. She was simply asked to step in without knowing why or what she was about to be pulled into. When cameras rolled, Label Bella claims Ivans mounted her and violently lifted her skirt while she was pinned down. And she didn't even know when the scene officially began or ended because Costner never called action or cut. The lawsuit states there was no intimacy coordinator, no stunt coordinator informed, and the set wasn't closed.
You know, if I hear the word billionaire one more time, I think I'm just gonna roll over, because I don't have that kind of money.
And I'm gonna kill him.
The man's got a right to protect his property and his life.
Multiple people watched from Video Village as the scene played out, with none of the protections required under SAG-AFTRA rules. The filing argues the production violated every major intimacy and safety protocol, including the mandatory 48-hour notice for scenes of that nature, setting off one of the most explosive accusations of Costner's career. The lawsuit says Label Bella went into shock during and after the scene, feeling exposed, humiliated, and shaken to her core. The next day, she reported everything to the intimacy coordinator, trying to make sense of what she'd just been through. She said she cried on and off for days and went home to be with family while she tried to calm her mind. When she came back to set, she claimed the whole vibe changed. Suddenly, crew members were treating her like she was radioactive, keeping her in her trailer, telling her not to be around the main set. By June 2023, she'd already started therapy for what she described as intrusive memories, anxiety, fear of close contact, and restless nights. Her career took a hit instantly. When Horizon Chapter 3 started early 2024, she wasn't hired back, and the stunt coordinator she'd worked with for years reportedly stopped booking her too. After spending years building her reputation, she said her career was basically wiped out overnight. Kevin Costner fired back hard. His lawyer, Marty Singer, called the allegations absolutely false and said the claims were completely contradicted by Label Bella's own actions. He argued the scene was explained beforehand and said she even gave a thumbs up to her stunt coordinator, signaling she was willing to do it if needed. Singer also said Label Bella went out to dinner with stunt coordinators that same night in good spirits and made no complaint at all. He accused her of being a repeat accuser who'd worked with the same lawyer on past claims, calling the lawsuit a shakedown that wasn't going to succeed. Costner himself filed a statement in August 2025, calling the accusations deeply disappointing and a bold-faced lie. He said the whole thing was designed to humiliate him and hurt the Horizon franchise for a massive payout. Reading allegations involving words like assault and violent scenes had been nothing short of a nightmare, he wrote. His legal team also submitted multiple statements from actors and crew saying the moment on set wasn't what Label Bella claimed, and that she didn't appear to object at the time. Costner's team tried to shut the whole lawsuit down using California's anti-SLAPP law. The rule meant to stop people from filing weak cases against protected creative work. Their argument was that Horizon portrayed the brutal reality women faced in the American West, including scenes of extreme danger, so the moment in question should fall under artistic expression. The judge didn't fully buy it. He agreed the film was protected speech, but said that wasn't enough. The second requirement, proving the claims had no merit, wasn't met, not even close. Then came the bombshell ruling in October 2025. Judge John Takasu denied most of Costner's attempt to toss the lawsuit. He threw out 2 claims, but allowed 8 major ones to move forward, including harassment, discrimination, retaliation, and breach of contract. In his written decision, the judge said Label Bella provided evidence suggesting she was put into an unplanned scene with no explanation, no choreography, and no proper coordinators present. He wrote that a reasonable person could see this as a hostile work environment, a huge blow for Costner's defense. One of Label Bella's attorneys praised the ruling, saying, "The creative process cannot and does not give men in power complete impunity." Even the intimacy coordinator for Horizon, Celeste Cheney, backed Label Bella's story, calling it an unscheduled, unplanned scene that blindsided everyone. She also pointed out a major red flag. Ella Hunt had already refused the scene, and Label Bella was a stunt pro, not a body double, meaning she should never have been used that way. Costner's attorney announced they would appeal immediately, which could delay the case for a year or more, but the public damage was already done. The scandal cast another heavy shadow over a franchise that was already drowning at the box office. Now audiences weren't just deciding whether they liked the movie, they were deciding whether they wanted to support a project tangled in serious allegations. For Costner, this was another nightmare stacked onto everything else. By late 2024 and into 2025, he was stuck inside a perfect storm of disasters. A public divorce, a financial meltdown, a collapsing franchise, and now a legal war that threatened to define his legacy. Kevin Costner's Yellowstone exit ended in pure chaos. His character was killed off while he watched from the outside, powerless. His Horizon dream turned into a financial disaster that drained $38 million from his own pockets and even put his estate on shaky ground. And now, his reputation was getting hit with allegations threatening to follow him forever. Every move he'd made since 2022 looked like it had blown up on him. The legal fights multiplied fast, not just the Label Bella case, but financial battles that wrapped the entire Horizon franchise in a chokehold. City National Bank moved to arbitration, accusing Costner's company of failing to repay major loans. Then, New Line Cinema filed cross-claims against Costner's own Horizon Series Inc., arguing he didn't fulfill his financial obligations. These weren't little disagreements. These were multi-million-dollar fights with everyone pointing fingers at each other. The Horizon franchise got trapped in a legal spiderweb so messy that releasing Chapter 2 became nearly impossible. Even though the film was finished and screened at Venice, the marketing and promo budget alone scared off every investor. No one wanted to pour more cash into a franchise drowning in bills and lawsuits. Meanwhile, Yellowstone wrapped up without him and pulled massive ratings. Cast members were polite but honest when asked about filming without Kevin. Luke Grimes said it felt different without him. But he also said that when Kevin left, some of the conflict left with him, a line that said way more than it looked like on paper. The show closed out the Dutton saga and marched into spin-offs, proving Kevin wasn't needed after all, and that had to cut deep. Behind the scenes, insiders painted Kevin as a man in crisis. People close to him said he was terrified Horizon would drain him completely and that the pressure was eating him alive. On top of that, he had kids caught in the middle of a divorce and watching their father battle public humiliation. Kevin had testified that being there for them was his biggest priority. But how could he focus on fatherhood while his entire career and finances were collapsing around him at 70 years old? Kevin Costner wasn't planning retirement. He was fighting to keep his entire life from collapsing. His accountant had panicked the moment he mortgaged his property. Financial experts had warned publicly that Horizon was the kiss of death, and even his ex-wife was scared they'd end up broke. Everyone around him saw the danger coming except him. Or maybe he saw it and just couldn't stop himself. He told Francis Ford Coppola he believed in the story with everything he had, and he told his kids he wanted them to understand he went after what he believed in. But belief doesn't pay mortgages. Belief doesn't fix lawsuits. Belief doesn't guarantee anyone shows up to the box office. Still, even with everything crashing down, Costner refused to walk away. He insisted he'd finish all 4 Horizon films no matter what. He even bragged that the 3rd chapter was harder than the first 2 and that the 4th would bring the whole saga home. He swore the world would eventually fall for these characters. When Horizon Chapter 1 dropped on Netflix in December 2024, he prayed streaming viewers would see it differently, without having to buy a movie ticket. Maybe then people would finally understand what he'd tried to build, Reports said he started hunting for billionaire investors, even joking that he needed big billionaires with boats to help him finish the story. It was a long way from the independent vision he'd bragged about, but desperation makes anybody bend. And that left Hollywood asking one question: what now? Could he actually finish the four-film saga? Or would Horizon end up as a half-finished monument to ambition? Would the lawsuits bury him financially? Would his reputation ever recover? Or would this whole saga become the first thing people remember when they hear the name Kevin Costner? As of October 2025, there are no clear answers. All we know is this: Kevin Costner bet everything on one dream and almost lost it all. The cost of that obsession isn't just the $38 million he sank into Horizon, but the broken relationships, the damaged name, and the years he spent trying to hold everything together. Hollywood will study this story for years. Costner reached the top twice, once with Dances with Wolves in 1990 and again with Yellowstone in 2018. He had respect, wealth, a solid family, and a hit show that secured his legacy, but somehow it still wasn't enough. Kevin Costner wanted more than success. He wanted artistic immortality. He wanted a legacy that would outlive him, a sweeping epic future generations would study and talk about. But chasing that dream ended up costing him almost everything else in his life. He burned through $38 million of his own money and put his Santa Barbara estate at risk because he mortgaged it for Horizon. His 18-year marriage collapsed in a painful public breakup, and months later his ex-wife married another man. His relationship with his kids grew strained while he kept disappearing to chase the film. His Yellowstone run ended in controversy, his character killed off-screen, while the show continued smoothly without him. And now his reputation is tangled in allegations a judge allowed to go to trial. Worst of all, the dream itself turned into a box office disaster critics called self-indulgent, while audiences barely noticed it. Everything he touched since 2022 seemed to fall apart. Some people see him as a fearless artist who refused to compromise, someone they admire for betting on himself, even when everyone else warned him he was risking too much. Others see reckless ego, a man who ignored his accountant, his wife, his lawyers, and the experts because he believed he always knew better. The truth probably sits somewhere in between. What can't be argued is that the choices Costner made in 2023 and 2024 changed his entire legacy forever. Now people won't just remember the Oscars and iconic roles. They'll remember the man who walked away from Yellowstone at its peak, gambled his fortune on a passion project that collapsed, and wound up fighting allegations that clashed with his carefully shaped image. Whether Horizon finds a second life on streaming, whether he somehow finishes all four films, whether audiences eventually embrace his vision, the damage is already carved into the story. The price has been paid, and it was higher than anyone expected. Before we wrap this up, if you made it this far, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to Goldenscape. Your support really means everything. It helps us keep digging into the wild, untold stories of Hollywood. Kevin Costner quit Yellowstone for a dream he carried for 36 years. But in chasing that dream, he lost his marriage, his fortune, and maybe even his legacy. Sometimes the cost of believing in something is way higher than you expect, and sometimes, when the people around you warn you you're heading for disaster, they're not trying to hold you back, they're trying to save you. Costner didn't listen, and now he's living with the consequences. His legend will forever include the moment everything came crashing down, and the haunting question of whether the dream was worth the price he paid.